Hey guys, it's Reese, and just hold on to your hats, grip tightly onto them, because today is one of my just honest to God favorite stories about how Cambodian refugees absolutely dominate the donut industry in California specifically, and it's just the craziest story ever. A good documentary to watch after this video is Donut King on Disney Plus or Hulu. It's such a riot. It's so fun. And so I was talking to my friend. She's of Vietnamese descent, and like most of her family is here because of like the nail industry, right? Because you're able to sponsor like family members and stuff. And so like that just got me down this rabbit hole of industries that like immigrants and refugees have absolutely dominated out of sheer force and willpower. So thank you for coming in and wanting to learn about donuts. So on Reese Gray Analyzes, we look at creations and experiences in art, media, music, and even video games to explore exactly why we think the way we think, question what we believe, and learn something new. So I'll start you guys from the beginning. So in the 1970s, there was this genocide of educated people in Cambodia. So like professors and teachers were being executed so they wouldn't rise to beat out this military dictatorship that was rising. So it was like an anti-intellectualism movement, basically. And so this was slightly after the Vietnamese War, and a lot of these same people aided the US in the Vietnamese War. So there was a feeling that a lot was owed to these people. And so by the Red Cross, they were offered like, which country do you want to go to? And a lot of them picked the USA. And there's this specific camp in San Diego where a lot of these Cambodians end up staying. And at one of these camps is someone named Ted Ngoy, who is the Donut King as we know it. He was formerly a soldier during the Cambodian War, so he can never return or he will be killed. And he made it to San Diego with his family. And he was able to make it out of the camp because there was a church that sponsored him and his family and gave him a place to stay at the church. And even the pastor allowed him and his family to shower at his home, and he worked as a janitor at the church. And of course that's not enough money, so he found another job as a janitor at a hotel and another job at a gas station as a gas station attendant as well. And so Ted Ngoy, he's working all of these jobs to almost 24 hours to just like help his family, right? And at his third job at the gas station, he smells this incredible smell because he was there for his morning shift, and there is a donut shop selling like fresh donuts. And so he went over to go get one, and when he tasted the donut, he said that it was really familiar tasting. He said it was similar to a Cambodian snack called Nam Kong. And so he was like, oh man, like I want to just make these and sell these. How do you think I can learn to make these from you at this random donut shop that was next to the gas station? And she's all like, well, like, but why don't you just go to like the major donut chain here in California and just get a job there and learn there? And that at the time was Winchell's. Winchell's was this huge franchise. It was the 70s times. It was that times like Dunkin' Donuts and Krispy Kreme, because right now in the West Coast, there wasn't Dunkin' Donuts and Krispy Kreme yet. That was an East Coast thing. And so Winchell's was the California donut spot. And so he gets a job over there and learns how to run a donut shop. He learns how to bake and fry, and he says he even learned payroll and all of that. And then he is able to save up enough money to open his own shop. And when Ted Ngoy started training too, he started training under Winchell to learn how to make these donuts when he was 33. So he was no like spring chicken, you know, but he totally learned a new language, learned a new trade, and just killed it, absolutely killed it. And what's so sweet is that to this day, Mr. Winchell and Ted Ngoy are still on speaking terms, like they still talk, like they were like competitors under capitalism, but you know, like that's fine. And just the story gets even wilder, even though right now it is very sweet. So when Ted Ngoy came, at his camp at Camp Pendleton in San Diego, there was 50,000 people at that camp, a lot more people who needed to be sponsored, right? And so when he's able to open his shop, he is able to sponsor more Cambodian families. He's able to offer them accommodation at his home, and he's able to offer them employment at his donut shop. And a lot of people in the documentary too, they say like his house was always full, the fridge was always full, people were always like willing to work hard, like they saved people from their nightmare. Like everyone's very, very thankful to the opportunities that they were given at that time. So he really is like, seems like he's just referred to as Uncle Ted. He's just this guardian angel for a lot of Cambodians to get sponsored. And throughout the time where he had his shops, he sponsored 100 families, not even 100 people, 100 families. And so his first shop that he opened, right, because it was so sweet too, because he was talking about a lot of business has to do with like networking and stuff. And he wasn't good at that. He wasn't a people person. And he said it was because a lot of people, like they didn't even know an Asian person or have an Asian friend. But there's this other woman in the Cambodian community who's like spoke good English. Everyone loved her. And she went by Christy. And so they go into business together. And the first shop that Ted Ngoy opens is called Christy's Donuts. And later, Ted and Christy go on to get married. And so they open their first shop in the 70s. And then by the 80s, they start franchising this out because they have people work at the original Christie's Donuts, and then they're able to, with a franchise fee, $40,000, have their own shop. And then of course Ted Ngoy gets residuals off of this. At his height, per month he was making $100,000 per month with all of his donut shops. And then at its peak, he had a total of 60 shops around California, and just immense success, crazy success. And so this like community driven venture of having people who were from this community and build up these shops themselves, they built up like a cult following. There was this one shop, and Dunkin' Donuts, how dare they would move in their shops like across the street from these like Cambodian donut places. Just, you know, those, I don't know if you guys have them in your state, but they're everywhere in California. It's like a donut shop and it's just called Donut, or like Donut Coffee, or like Donut Coffee Burger. Like literally, like we have them, like you drive down 10 minutes and there's one, like you see like 3 or 4 just driving in one direction on the same street. It's crazy. So there are just so many. And people in those communities with those shops that's been there for like 40 years, people are loyal to them. And in the documentary, they show this original donut shop from like one of Ted Ngoy's donut shops. And when the Dunkin' Donuts moved in across the street, that to this day is their busiest day yet, because the community came in to show their support for their town's favorite donut shop. And it just, I love that. I love that. Stick it to them. And so by the mid 90s, actually, 80% of independently owned donut shops were owned by Cambodian individuals, so in California. So that is just insane. Demand is booming for Ted in such a way that he just like couldn't keep up with it, and he had to start his own packaging company as well to keep prices low and to be able to ship off packaging super duper quick. So now not only is he making like 20 million a year just off of residuals from his shops, but he also has this packing company that his shops, you know, buy his goods from. It's insane. So he's doing very well for himself now. And so now comes the fall of Ted Ngoy's empire, okay? And with a lot of falls from glory, where do they start? They start in Las Vegas, Nevada. So for the first time in the 90s, he takes a trip to Las Vegas. And he loves it a wee bit too much. He turns into a gambling man. He writes $1 million checks at the Mirage Casino and loses it that same day, and he just becomes addicted to gambling. In the documentary, he is very forthright in this and talks about how he would sneak away from his family. He'll say he's picking up deposits, and he'll literally fly to Vegas from like the Bay Area, which is like an hour flight, but like 8-hour drive, or like 3-hour drive from San Diego. And he would like sneak away from his family to go gamble. And one time the family knows where he goes because he has a favorite casino, which apparently is the Mirage. I do like the Mirage. But anyway, he is like ducking behind slot machines and stuff because he sees his family coming to look for him. And it's just so tragic. And he ends up getting in way too deep gambling that without his wife's knowledge, he starts to tell these stores like, hey, like, give me an advance of $50,000. If you don't get it back, then you own the shop. Right? Because so $50,000 was their original franchise fee to have stake in ownership, to have a franchise that is owned by Ted Ngoy, right? And so a lot of these times he keeps losing the money, and he's losing these donut shops by forging his wife's signature as well. So he goes from like 60 shops, 50, 30. This happens in the span of a year because he keeps borrowing money from these shops and losing it gambling. And so they end up losing everything very, very quickly. They lose their huge home. They lose their donut shops, and they have nothing. And so what Ted and Christy decide to do is that they go home. They go back to Cambodia and they start a little business venture there in real estate, and it doesn't really work out. They go back to the United States. Christy's still with Ted during all of this adversity. And then she finds out, after staying with him, after all of this, after the fraud, after the gambling addiction, and Ted has an affair. And Christy finds out, and that is the straw that breaks the camel's back. And she decides to leave him. That's it. She was just like, I just can't believe it. And so many betrayals, one after another. And so that is the fall from grace from the Donut King. So the lesson is, do not go to Vegas. So Ted Ngoy, basically, he loses everything. He's homeless, basically, on the streets of Vegas. But do not be worried, because we have the Donut Queen, actually, who has innovated like hell through this donut craze, because you know what, people get bored of regular little donuts. And then, you know, the East Coast is known for their donut craze. They are the innovators. The East Coast knows what's going on, and the West Coast follows. So the East Coast, they started in 2019. There was a chef who came up with the CRONUT. And Mei Lee Tao, who owned one of Ted Ngoy's donut shops, like in the beginning. So Mei Lee Tao is the daughter of one of the original owners of one of Ted Ngoy's shops. And she figures out her own personal CRONUT recipe. And like, so SoCal, like, you're in San Diego, and then you have like a foodie scene. And one day someone like comes in and then like pokes his head in the door, and he's like, are you really selling like a CRONUT? Like, you're selling CRONUTs here? And she's like, yeah. And then he leaves. And so she's like, rude. Okay. Like, not even going to buy anything. He was a writer, and he wrote an article that the CRONUT is now in California, and it's the only place you can get it, and it causes this influx of business. Everyone wants a CRONUT. Everyone goes to Mei Lee's donut shop. And so not only is this the iconic shop that people loved so much that they protested the Dunkin' Donuts moving in across the street, but now it's the same shop with the freaking CRONUT, guys. The guy who came up with the CRONUT recipe in New York. So his name was Angelique Steele, right? He sent a cease and desist to her to stop making CRONUTs, but she's like, stop making cronuts. It's my recipe. I didn't steal anything that's yours. Like, you don't own the word cronut either. Like, that's mine, and you have yours. It's all fine. It's all okay. And to this day, she sells her cronuts, which look really good. Like, I have seen cronuts near where I live, and like, I'm like, but honestly, like, hers look like really flaky and delicious. Since she's the originator of it, you know, I'm sure that she has the recipe down like so well. So I need to go there. I actually do need to go there. And thus is the extremely juicy story of the donut king, his fall, and then the rise of the donut queen via cronut. Now, some things that were iffy, you know, you gotta be a little bit shady sometimes, and can you blame them? But they would use, you know, labor from their children. That's free. You know, after school, little 10-year-old comes by and it's time to get in the bakery. It's time to work the cashier area. It's time for you to get to work. So that's how a lot of them made profits, and they wanted to make it a family business, you know, so their kids take over the shops later. And then the documentary also goes into this a little bit too, because, you know, these parents, they did amazing for their kids. They were able to grow up and get an education, and they don't want to work in a bakery anymore. So that's kind of the issue that they're having now, because these shops are fizzling out because of a new generation coming who doesn't want to work those shops anymore. And so are these shops going out of business? Sad? Yes. But it's also really awesome that these parents were able to really dig their heels in so hard, work so hard, so their kids were able to have stable careers in which that they could want. So it's sad, and, you know, they did excellent as parents as well with this new generational trend of all of these shops shutting down. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was one of my favorite, juiciest documentaries that I've ever watched. It was really fun, and just there was so much to learn in that documentary, and I hope you guys really enjoyed this. Like always, let me know if there's something weird you guys want me to research, or a weird experience that I can like build into a video. That would be so awesome. Let me know any trends, because I'm a hag and I don't know any trends. And as always, I love you guys. Thanks for spending your time with me today. These are always very fun. Okay, love you. Bye.